Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Items to be presented by administration. Mr. Jacobus?
No report.
Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Jacobus, would let the record reflect that Mr. Kubler is here.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Items, remarks, and committee reports to be presented by board members. Mr. Kubler? Mrs. Torres? Mr. Zingari?
Yes, Madam Vice President. I just wanted to say, being on the Board of Education for quite some time now, just to give a very, very quick recap of some of the situations we had to deal with superintendents. When I first got elected to the board many years ago, we had a superintendent. A few weeks later, came out to public session, was fired, then had an interim, did not reapply for the job. Then we did a search for school boards. The first choice that we had and that we had an agreement with wound up not taking the job because of a breach of confidentiality. We went to number 2. Some time later, he was on administrative leave. Then we had another acting who became superintendent. On our agenda tonight, item number 3, we have probably one of the most reputable firms in the tri-state area to not only search for a superintendent, but to recruit a superintendent. And I think one of those things our district needs is good leadership. So I'm really hoping with item number 3 approved tonight, we get the leadership that this school district deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zingari. Mr. Frieda?
No report tonight.
Okay, may I have a motion motion to open for public participation?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Just so that the public is clear, this is a special meeting, and although there is public comment, the board's action tonight is limited by law only to the 3 items which it advertised. At a special meeting, you can only act on what you advertise, and therefore public comment is limited to those 3 items.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Remarks regarding agenda items and issues that are relevant to the educational system or to the agenda this evening. Participant must sign in, be recognized by the presiding officer, and must preface comments by an announcement of his or her name, place of residence, group affiliation if appropriate. The individual called shall proceed. All statements shall be directed to the President of the Board of Education. No participation may address board members individually. Mr. Jeff Manley.
Good evening. What can you tell us about item number 1, the structure of item? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you tell us anything about the structure of the deal with
When public comment is completed, but before the board acts, I'll tell you everything about it.
Okay, so we can't ask questions before you act as on the contract. All right, maybe then item number 3. I see that you're engaging strategic educational advantage. Does this search exceed New Jersey?
Yes, it does. This is a firm that will search nationwide. Obviously, this is more an East Coast search than a West Coast search, but they will search nationwide. These are 3 extremely well-qualified people, and one of them, Dr.
in the state of New
in
Jersey.
the state.
I wish that was comforting. Sometimes it isn't. Can you tell me whether or not the board is going to have strict criteria for the degree of, experience, curriculum requirements? Because we can see that under the curriculum this year, there was a whole lot failing, and our teachers are at a major disadvantage, as our children will be.
I have the advantage, and maybe others here have too, but I have worked with Dr. Cabrera at his firm before. So it is their custom to talk very closely with the board and with stakeholders as well to define what's really needed as a superintendent, not just from a degree standpoint, but from an experience standpoint. All those qualities that one looks for in a superintendent. One of the advantages of this firm is that they don't just pick a superintendent and leave. They assist in mentoring that superintendent to make sure things go smoothly, and they stay in touch with the board even after the selection.
I may be wrong, but I don't remember ever using the National Search Committee to select our superintendents. I'm happy that we are.
Here's the difference. Many times firms use the New Jersey School Boards Association to do a search. They do a very fine job, but they develop criteria, they place ads, they review the submissions, and then they make recommendations to the board based on their review. What Strategic Educational Advantage and some other firms like them do is all of that, plus they actually go out and identify people that they think would be good for the district and encourage them to apply.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a comment on number 2. First, I know personally, to some degree, casually, Ricardo Acosta, and I've always had him. I liked him. I thought he was good. I think he's good. This has been a crazy political atmosphere in the last year or so, and there's a lot of swinging things going on here, but Mr. Acosta is being asked to serve as the acting superintendent for an undeterminable amount of time at this point, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he's also going to retain being the principal of School 4 at the same time. That is correct. So I assume, being the principal of School 4, that you will spend your time during the day in School 4. Is that a wrong assumption?
I'm the lawyer here.
Okay. Mrs. Lombardi.
Mr. Egan might wish to address that.
Mr. Egan.
It's anticipated that demands of both jobs can be fulfilled by the candidate if approved. What makes it a little different in this situation than, say, other situations, other districts. One is that the school that he's with is not the largest elementary school. Number 2, as a state monitor, I will be supporting him also and going over things. So it's not like he's just walking in and looking and being asked to do 2 jobs totally by himself.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Just one final question is, will that then not be the entire superintendent's salary for that period in addition to the principal's salary?
Right, as we speak right now, there's no additional compensation at all.
Are you out of your mind? At any rate, final comments. I'm sorry, please, if you have
No,
anything.
just, I too believe there should be additional compensation, and the board is in agreement with that too. But we didn't have a chance really to discuss fully that yet, so probably by the next board meeting that we can have something like that.
Thank you. And just on a word, Ricardo, really good luck and I hope your time is with distinction. We really need good leadership in such an important position. Good luck to you.
Thank you. Mr. McCrum.
Wasn't it Jeff Mattingly, but it's Mr. McCrum?
Mr. Tom McCrum.
Jeff pretty much touched on the points that I was going to ask. You say that you will explain everything we need to know about Mrs. Feldman and her being separated from the board. That was one of the questions I had. It says in the form that has been approved by the New Jersey Department of Education. Is that how, if any money is being given to her, that form explains how the money is being turned out?
There's a complete agreement that was submitted to the Department of Education that was scrutinized by them, revised based on their comments, their audits. They worked very closely with Mr. Jacobus, making sure that the numbers were correct. And all of that is set forth in the agreement. That's an agreement which, after it's approved by the board, can be discussed and is in fact a public document.
And with all the, again, this is nothing personal against Mr. Acosta, but with all the principals that we have in this group, many of whom have more experience as a principal than he has, I just question, why him?
May I just cut that out here?
Yes, please.
The entire universe of people eligible for this is those who have a certificate of eligibility to serve as a chief school administrator.
Right.
Not all the principals in this district have that certificate.
Okay, not all of them, but I would assume some of them. Just to, I got that at some point. Okay. Now, again, to me, it's almost an insult to say to the principal, you can be a principal and also you can be the superintendent of schools. It's almost like saying being the principal of school 4 doesn't amount to that much. You've got so much free time, you can also be a superintendent. And especially since, right now, we don't think we're going to get any money for doing it. If, based on what Mr. Egan said, tonight we're going to appoint Mr. Acosta as the superintendent, or the acting superintendent, and perhaps at the next meeting, after you've had some more discussions, there may be some discussion as far as some kind of remuneration for him doing 2 jobs. Based on what has happened over the last couple of years, it kind of scares me that you're saying we're going to appoint the superintendent tonight, and next month we'll talk about how much we're going to pay. Not that I shouldn't trust you, but I just find that a little bit scary. I am somewhat familiar with superintendent searches from a very outside looking in type situation. I know that I have sat down with the School Boards Association in a committee, and we discussed what we as a district were looking for in a superintendent, whether or not we wanted somebody who had a doctorate or not, did not have a doctorate. I assume you'll be able to do the same thing with the group that you're hiring. Okay, thank you. Oh, and even though it's not on the agenda, the minutes are still not appearing on the board.
Mr. Michael Shelton.
I'm going to defer my comments until the next general meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Polite.
Good evening. I wish you the best, Mr. Acosta, in your endeavors going forward. I have a comment on point number 3, when it's discussed that the professional services of SEA were being awarded without bid. How is that determined that you're going to give an award, award without the benefit of the bidding process?
There is no bidding for professional services, period.
And I'm assuming that Mrs. Feldman's contract, her original contract is being amended?
No, it's being terminated.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Arlene Short.
Arlene Shore, 75 Rossmore Place. It's not unusual in very, very small districts, in what we call usually one-horse districts, for the position of superintendent and principal to be one. And an example is one of our neighbors across the river. Those of you who are familiar with East Harrison, I believe they have a new superintendent who was the former superintendent of Union. And I believe there's a district, and I'm sure you can name many more. I think it was Bethlehem, which is another one school, one superintendent district, or in fact something like Harrington Park. So that there are certain procedures, obviously, that need to be authorized by a superintendent, but there's certainly a difference between a district such as this and larger districts. So, obviously, with no personal indication, I really find it interesting that we're going to take someone who has a little experience as an administrator, and we're putting them into the role of acting superintendent. Rumor has it, so I would just like to clarify, because I'm not going to state it as a fact, because I'm not exactly sure. So I'm going to hope that the rumor is in fact wrong, because there were 3 administrators who worked the election during the first day of the New Jersey Ask. And I did bring that up at several meetings ago. And I hope that this person who you're recommending to be an assistant superintendent was not one of those who very visibly worked an election on the day of New Jersey Ask in this town at the polls. Thank you.
Motion to close public participation. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion on board action, board policy? Second. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Mr. Edelstein, would you like to give us an explanation? Or give the public an explanation before we take vote?
Yes, I'd like to do that if I may, and I'd like to discuss the process just a little bit as well. In the past, it was a board prerogative to negotiate and buy out the contract of a superintendent whenever it wished. That was an unsupervised activity in the sense that the Department of Education had played no role in it, and there were no statutes, regulations, or guidelines that applied. All that has changed, and now this is a very, very regulated process. So what's going on here is that Mrs. Feldman has decided to resign. This is a voluntary resignation on her part. And having done that, the law tells us what she is entitled to. And that is then reviewed and audited by the state, both for dollars and language. And what she is entitled to, and she has a contract which would go for another 2 years, it would go till June 2016. And there's a statute which says that a person leaving in that situation is entitled to, and I'm going to oversimplify this slightly, 3 months pay for each year remaining on the contract. There is little less than that here because of the way the timing breaks. So rather than 6 months, it's more like 5.5 months. But that's a figure that's determined pursuant to the regulations and reviewed by the Department of Education. The only other thing that a superintendent leaving receives is payment, just like any other teaching staff member would, for unused sick, unused and accrued sick days and vacation days, although that's subject to limitations by statute and code as well. In this case, the number of days was determined by consultation with the district's records that was reviewed by the Department of Education. The Department of Education requested and reviewed the actual underlying records. They didn't just accept anybody's word for anything. They made an adjustment because there was a 3-day discrepancy between the way superintendent or council viewed it and the way the Department of Ed viewed it. That was resolved, as are all these disputes, in the favor of the Department of Education. And that's it. That's what the agreement provides. Exactly what the law requires. And the language of all separation agreements are now, must now be approved by the Department of Education. And we have a letter dated today from Mr. Bumpus, who's the Assistant Commissioner for Field Services, who's in charge of such things. Madam Vice President, I may just read it into the record. It's addressed to Mrs. Feldman and to Mr. Rivera as Board President. As you are aware, this office received a proposed agreement for early separation pursuant to NJSA 18A 17-20.2A, which requires prior approval of the Commissioner of Education. In that, the proposed agreement includes payment of compensation as a condition of separation. Upon receipt, the proposed agreement and related documents were moved to the Commissioner's level for review in accordance with the provision of the Code. I am pleased to inform you on behalf of the Commissioner that the review referenced above has been completed and the proposed agreement between the parties has been approved. So, this was an open, above-board, transparent process. As I think I said earlier to one of the gentlemen, after today, that agreement becomes a public document. May I just mention one other thing? Somebody who spoke expressed some concern that any additional compensation for Mr. Acosta or stipend or whatever it might be, serving as an assistant superintendent, as the acting superintendent, should be reasonable. The fact of the matter is that that too is subject to the approval of the Department of Education. It cannot be unilaterally determined by the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Edelstein. Mr. Jacobus, can you please poll the board on Board Action Board Policy 1 through 3?
Madam Vice President, just one thing. Item number 3, that is being voted on tonight, pending review of legal counsel.
Yes, we have a proposal, a very thorough proposal, but we will put together a contract that meets all the statutory requirements. I think that the Department of Education is very sensitive to transitions at school districts and would like the district to get on with its search as quickly as possible.
That's all.
Before I call the roll call, Mr. Edelstein, did you want to add anything to
Yes, please.
the resolution?
Yes, the first resolution, which approves the separation agreement with Mrs. Feldman, should have added to it that the board also accepts her irrevocable letter of resignation, effective as of the close of business on August 31.
Then I'll call the roll on items 1 through 3. Mr. Kugler?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Zingari?
Yes.
Mr. Frieda?
Yes.
Mrs. Lombardo?
Yes. May I have a motion for adjournment? Second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.